Welcome to Communist China, a country where you are controlled, measured, and monitored, not allowed to speak unless you are told to speak by the government or the state. How would you like to live in a country like this for those who complain about where you live? Take note.
The country's leader, Xi Jinping, has set the course. And everyone is expected to follow. But do they want to? How freely can they speak about the Winter Olympics?
I have to fetch something. Someone's waiting for me.
Strangers can't go to the village due to COVID.
During our research, we were constantly tailed. Athletes have to remain within the Olympic bubble. Because of the pandemic, the Winter Games are being held in confinement. Only people living abroad dare to protest.
All of these are actually pictures of political prisoners detained by the Chinese government. There are Hong Kongers, Tibetans, Uyghurs.
Welcome to Straddled Events. On this channel, we bring you the truth. Sometimes the truth is quite ugly, unbearable, and you just don't want to deal with it. But on this channel, you're going to get it anyway. Straddling between the fence of good versus evil, right versus wrong. And on this channel, we're going to tell you to do better. Let's go.
The Chinese people we were able to speak with only had positive words for the Winter Olympics. But internationally, the number of critics has been growing. 22-year-old Joey Siu now lives in Washington. Whenever she has time, she organizes vigils designed to draw attention to the victims of the Chinese regime.
All of these are actually pictures of political prisoners detained by the Chinese government. There are Hong Kongers, Tibetans, Uyghurs.
Joey Siu wanted to become a teacher in Hong Kong, where she comes from. But as one of the prominent figures in the 2019 pro-democracy protests, she can no longer return. She spoke out about the Communist Party's ever-growing power.
As the national security law came into place in Hong Kong in July 2020, that brought me a very huge personal safety concern, because after the implementation, I found myself constantly followed by people whom I don't know whether they are police officers or national security agents. I have been receiving a lot of threatening messages and calls non-stop. All of my personal information, the personal information of even my family members, have been exposed online. Every day there will be people texting me, calling me, saying that we're gonna come get you.
One after the other, leading members of Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement disappeared behind bars. Many are Joey Siu's friends. She would like to help them from abroad, but there's a high price to pay.
Our family members are more or less being held as hostages by the Chinese Communist Party. Whatever we do, whatever we say in exile could potentially bring harm to my family members, to our family members, where they could be imprisoned, they could be arrested by the Chinese Communist Party for our activism.
The long arm of China can reach as far as Munich. Memeteli Niaz goes to a vocation training school in the southern German city. He grew up in China, and the rest of his family is still there. But he doesn't know how they are. He has been unable to contact them for years now.
I know that my two brothers are still alive, but I don't know anything about my sister, where she is, or what has happened to her.
He lost contact with his sister almost 5 years ago. These are photos from their last meeting in Turkey.
We had so many happy times.
Her plan had been to return to China to open a travel agency, but then she disappeared.
At first I was hoping that it was just a misunderstanding on the part of the Chinese government, because my sister was just studying in Turkey.
But like hundreds of thousands of others, she disappeared without trace. Mehmet Ali and his family are Uyghurs, a largely Muslim ethnic group. According to official statistics, more than 11 million Uyghurs live in the Xinjiang region in China's far northwest. Mehmet Ali fears that his sister might be in an internment camp.
Back then, there was a list for what they referred to as abnormal or absurdly abnormal behavior. For example, if you stopped drinking alcohol, this was interpreted as a symbol of extremism. Or if you studied abroad, or simply traveled, that was seen as reason enough for Uyghurs to be sent to re-education camps.
A complex with watchtowers near Urumqi, the capital of the Xinjiang region. There were already witness accounts dating back years saying that Uyghurs were being confined behind these walls in a re-education camp. The complex was later signposted as an industrial estate. During our shoot a few months ago, police immediately appeared on the scene.
You're not allowed in there.
We're just outside.
No, it's not allowed. There's nothing to see anyway.
Experts estimate that about 1 million Uyghurs were detained. How many remain imprisoned is not clear. Witnesses have reported torture and rape. On the streets of Urumqi, there are police everywhere, and police stations are often within sight of one another. The entrances to residential blocks are operated via facial recognition software. The systems are directly linked with the police's.
My family members are frightened that they will be detained by the Chinese government if they have contact with me. That's my mother.
Put in an impossible position, she broke off contact.
My mother was very sad and told me, please don't contact me anymore.
With his family torn apart like this, Mehmet Ali is the only one living in safety.
With the situation being as it is, how can I accept that China is hosting the Olympics?
China's government say they are fighting terrorism in Xinjiang. They deny carrying out cultural genocide against the Uyghurs. Researchers and politicians have been condemning these crimes against humanity for years. The Olympic rings by the side of the Chinese flag. State TV shows images of a harmonious meeting between two presidents. IOC President Thomas Bach and Chinese President Xi Jinping keep on stressing that politics and sport must be kept separate. There is no room here for difficult topics, and they are also taboo in the Chinese skiing area. Fake snow is a symbol of progress for Wang Lihung, although this may be something he was told to say. The party's local propaganda unit selected him for the interview, and they are now monitoring his every word. But towing the party lines brings benefits.
When we were still farmers, we looked after the fields and the livestock. Now with the ski region, we have reliable jobs and steady income. We earn more, we're expanding our skills, we have savings, and that's nice.
When asked whether he thinks having artificial snow in a region where water is in short supply is problematic, he answered tetchily.
There's quite a lot of water in Hebei province, relatively speaking. People think water is scarce, but it isn't. There's snow in winter, rain in summer. There's even spring water. We collect the water and don't waste it. Saying it's dry here is just a prejudice.
But experts say there is water shortage in the ski area, as well as environmental problems. Conservationist Zhang Jinfeng takes us outside of Beijing. He knows the area well. He's been observing the streams and rivers here for decades. Zhang Jinfeng says that water flowed here 30 years ago. Beijing winters have always been dry, but climate change is making it worse, and watercourses are drying up.
Extreme water scarcity is classified as less than 300 cubic meters. But in Beijing, people only have an average of 170 cubic meters of water a year at their disposal. So there's very extreme water scarcity in Beijing.
On the far side of the mountains lies an Olympic alpine skiing course. To create the fake snow needed, water has to be pumped over the mountains from a reservoir 60 kilometers away.
To supply all the places linked to the Winter Games, canals and pipes were built over a period of many years to get the water there.
Artificial snow in a parched region. Holding the games here is irresponsible, says hydrologist Carmen de Jong. The researcher based in France has visited China several times and has been following the preparations since Beijing was awarded the 2022 Winter Olympics.
I think that this is the most unsustainable Olympic Games of all times because none of the basic requirements were there.
Compared to the Alps, for example, China needs twice or 3 times as much artificial snow. Wind is another reason why the climate here is not suitable.
The majority of snow blows away as it's being made, so you need a lot more snow than usual. Plus, the climate is very dry, so a large amount evaporates.
A nature reserve was sacrificed to make way for the alpine ski venue at the top and the bobsleigh run in the Olympic village at the bottom of the valley. Once a haven for rare animals and plants, the Zhongshan Conservation Zone used to look like this. But for the Games, Beijing permitted development to go ahead, right at its heart.
Slopes were built all over. Roads, helipads, car parks, and so on. It's no longer a refuge for rare animals.
How have the large-scale development impacted people living in the uplands bordering the ski slopes? Were the interests of the local villagers taken into account? We went to ask residents whether they support the Games. But even months ahead of the event, these places were already high security zones with constant police checks. Everyone had to show their identity cards. As foreigners, our team were taken aside by the police. Passports and visas were photographed, but that wasn't all. We were asked to download an app onto our smartphones, which gave police access to our location data so that they could also track us digitally. As soon as we arrived in the mountainous regions, we were closely followed by at least 2 cars. They stopped everywhere that we did. We had come to find out whether most people here are benefiting from the winter sports boom, or are they being pushed out by modernization, and what are their thoughts about the Olympics? We had hoped to speak to this man who runs a junkyard, but someone got there before us. Then, the man from the junkyard closed the gate without speaking to us. Our minders returned to their vehicle, an effective means of pressuring people. The mountainous area surrounding Beijing is a poor region. Tourism is not well developed here. The land is not well suited to farming. This is the other China. More than 600 million people in the country live on less than the equivalent of €150 a month. Some houses here are uninhabited, others have already collapsed. We were lucky to come across a local resident. He told us he was wearing his fireproof jacket. At first he seemed happy to talk. But then,
I have to fetch something. Someone's waiting for me.
Strangers can't go to the village due to COVID.
He said in the pandemic they don't allow foreigners to enter.
No strangers in the village.
Pandemic reasons.
No strangers in the village due to the pandemic.
We have testing.
You can go to the town for interviews.
Interview in the city.
we headed to the next small town, with the same cars tailing us. Most young people in this region have moved to the cities. Those who live here are familiar with the bitter poverty from the past. Everyone we spoke with said something positive about the Olympic Games. Their expression of gratitude to the party seemed almost like an automatism.
Nowadays, we can go on excursions, try out skiing. There is lots for young people, only advantages. And we have President Xi Jinping to thank for that.
Here too, someone intervened.
You have to wear masks during the pandemic. It doesn't look good. The foreigners are filming and see you without a mask. You have to wear masks in accordance with the pandemic rules.
On the edges of the city, high-rises loom. According to local newspapers, many farmers from the area were resettled in these new buildings as part of a program to beat poverty. An entire village was reportedly moved into this residential complex. But when we arrived, they closed the gates. We asked to interview the residents from afar, but weren't allowed.
During the pandemic, you can't go into the village without registering beforehand. Do you understand? Residents who have traveled here from elsewhere also have to register with the authorities. We are in the midst of a pandemic. That's the way it is.
What does this man think about the resettlement program?
It's great.
What has changed?
The villages are different. Instead of bungalows, there are multi-story buildings. It's improved.
By this point, 3 cars were following us. What were our minders afraid of? We couldn't find out. They didn't want to talk to us. This man also stopped talking to us after he received a call. The state wants to control any comments made in public.